Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. At 11 PM UK time on the 12th of February 2020, Blackwing Lair released in Classic World of Warcraft. Within the hour, the instance had been cleared over 10 times, all 8 bosses downed and one-shot, many of them in less than 1 minute. Surprisingly, there was little world-first coverage, especially for a version of the game that's been frequently touted as far more hardcore, whereas those same people believing that the retail game is for more casual players. A more casual game where 150,000 people watched Limit land a world first kill on the new mythic raid boss after literally months of preparations and millions upon millions of in-game gold, equivalent to thousands of dollars in WoW tokens spent to get the best gear possible. Ever since Legion and the top-end guilds deciding to make their Road to World First a highly publicised event with 24-hour coverage across various platforms, there has been much more focus on the active ways they are reaching their conclusions as to composition, strategy, and other factors that go into a boss kill. There is testing on the fly and an arms race to figure out what to do and execute it perfectly. On the classic side, however, well, this has all been done before, not just once either. Many times in fact. The guilds you see at the peak of classic progression haven't just started to clear these raids faster and easier the more they gear up, but have gone actively back to level 1 multiple times and redone the whole journey. On top of this, many private servers overestimated early raids' difficulty levels, or even went as far as to purposefully buff them to offer more of a challenge. Did I mention we're also playing on patch 1.12 iterations of gearing and talents as well? Yep, that's another buff to our characters across the board. It's as if you had Method do Mythic on the PTR and then put them up against Heroic on the live servers. The poor bosses wouldn't stand a chance versus these guys. In Classic, they've literally had years to perfect the game to an art, min-maxed to the max. The ideal raid composition, full consumables and world buffs, the necessary class buffs, how to execute the fights most efficiently. You can look at Classic and see a rank 1 mage on more or less any single target fight, and see their rotation is literally just pressing Frostbolt, that's it. Then you look at the rank 1000 mage on the same fight, also just pressing Frostbolt, but there's a reason somebody is first and way ahead compared to others, and it's not just gear and luck. Of course, people look up to these guys for advice, knowledge, streams, ideas on what they are doing is correct according to them. Everybody wants to improve, right? And these top guilds very much have the top and most dedicated players in the game. Now, we're still in the very early days of Blackwing Lair, I'll accept that, but it's certainly a step up from Molten Core. I don't really think there's an argument to be had there. There are more impactful mechanics on many bosses, and very much so more chance to wipe if there are mistakes, especially over aggroing on any of the dragon bosses. For more casual guilds, especially ones of players perhaps returning to see Classic after having played Vanilla or having never played Vanilla at all, the challenge from Classic raiding is starting to rear its head just a little bit. Looking over to Warcraft logs, we can see a rather telltale story of the number of guild clears in Molten Core, a staggering near 14,000. What else can you see? Barely any progress happening any longer. Perhaps that's to be expected, it has been out for a very long time, right? Looking over to Blackwing Lair, there are a few bumps in the road. Veilstraz, who is a real guild killer in Vanilla, around 280 guilds progressing. Broodlord Lashlayer even more so with around 420 guilds. Firemore, who appears to be the real boss of this instance surprisingly, at 650 guilds working on that. And then things fall off for the other 2 Drakes before picking back up at Chromagus and Nefarian. Of course, as of doing this, near 7,000 guilds are 8 out of 8 clear, and it's no small amount to be sure, but if we add up all those guilds progressing, that's near 2,500 guilds on their way through Blackwing Lair. That's actually not such a small amount, is it? And as some people look up, others look down. Egos and gaming go hand in hand. Welcome to the internet, and some people take their games very seriously. Gatekeeping. Not sure how I made it this far without saying this word yet, but here we are. And I bet I'm not going to say what you expect. Just so we're all on the same page, this basically means if you don't play at X level, have Y thing, or do Z activity, then you're bad, casual, don't know what you're doing, and anything along that line. Gatekeeping in gaming has become such a huge thing. Complete anecdotal segue time. I was watching somebody stream a blind Dark Souls playthrough a while ago, and somebody came into the chat and told them they were not using the optimal setup for the build they were running, to which the streamer replied they didn't care, at which point the viewer said they are then bad. This person came to watch a game notorious for its difficulty in order to try and make the game easier for the player. The player, not wanting to follow the easy route, got called bad when, in fact, left to their own devices, the player would realistically be playing a harder game than without the knowledge. In this case, the person in the know is actually dumbing down the game whilst feeling as though they have the upper hand due to their perceived knowledge. I don't mind min-maxing. In fact, I quite like it. I made a video about it a little bit ago. You can check it if you want. I'll link it below as to my reasons why there, so I don't end up going into that again now. Nor is there anything wrong with being a casual player, whatever that means. The meaning's different for everybody. Some people would say a casual is somebody who only plays at weekends, or someone who isn't level 60. Some would say a casual doesn't have an epic mount yet. It can mean whatever you like, really. At the end of the day, wanting to compete is completely normal. I'm sure you have seen or heard of Games Done Quick or the European Speedrunner Assembly. These are entire communities solely based around doing something as fast and efficiently as possible. Speedrunning has very much become its own subculture within gaming as a whole. Whenever a new big title comes out, it's checked as a possible speedrun game. I don't think From Software can ever release a game again without it being beat to death by speedrunners. And MMOs cater to this kind of attitude big time. From leveling, to gear, to enchants, and so on, there are so many areas to perfect and excel in. And for Classic, the competition isn't just about who clears first, but who clears fastest. In fact, world first for these top guilds is something you very much want, of course, for the bragging rights, but the speedrun is the real challenge. World first has too many variables out of your control, such as server issues, possible bugs, and so on. And this is what the top end guilds play for, and somebody will always be going for that spot. Honestly, a lot of it just comes down to banter too. Not everybody at the top end is a walking ego due to their in-game achievements, and that's okay. I hear people say, why farm a few hours a week in order to be able to afford consumables to clear raids in 45 minutes instead of an hour? Why spend all of this extra time when you can just do the bare minimum? Why even make any effort at all? Or that many people are spoiling the game for themselves. You can't really expect somebody who's played multiple private server releases to be stumbling about in Westfall or rediscovering the dead mines on release, can you? I mentioned it in my min-max vid, but the leveling is just something that is a gateway to the content they want to do. It's wild, but in Classic we have the standard people at the top end gatekeeping playing at a high level, but we also have people gatekeeping playing casually, advocating that people should chill leveling, not bother with dungeon cleaving, ranking's a waste of time, world buffs aren't necessary, farming huge amounts of gold is a waste of time. I've never seen a game where so many people are telling each other they aren't enjoying the game correctly. It feels like I'm watching a Legion, Ian and Lord dev talk. I think this game has a lot different about it. Usually on new releases or even in established titles, we have either knowledgeable figures emerging after a short period of time, or those to look back from previous titles, whereas with Classic we have an insane number of people that know huge amounts from private servers, and of course people want to share that knowledge. It's just something that's far too often done in a pretty hostile way, or assuming that because I know something, everybody else should know it too, which is a real shame overall. I think it's led to quite a divide in the player base and this double-sided gatekeeping taking place. Maybe it's to be expected in this day and age with so much publicly available knowledge floating about. Anecdote number 2 now. Just yesterday I was leveling my hunter a bit and I grouped with a mage to complete the quest Morganth in the Red Ridge Mountains. This is quite challenging as a 2-man group. The respawns in the tower are very fast and the mob density is high, and this absolute madman of a mage was using arcane missiles as his main spell. I've quite literally never seen anybody do that. It made me smile and I thought this guy is probably having more fun than 90% of the player base right now. Why ruin something by trying to force knowledge on it? If people want to know something, they will seek it out. I know personally I'm going to be getting world buffs and flasking for Blackwing Lair. Why? I like seeing big crits on my screen. I'm a pretty simple guy. I like looking at Warcraft logs and seeing how well I am performing compared to my peers. I don't think that's too out of the ordinary. In fact, in a game, I would say this is absolutely normal. Not to say if you or your guild doesn't do that there's any issue. If it works for you, good for you as far as I'm concerned. I think consumables and buffs should be more of a raid expectation rather than a player. You should know the deal when you join a guild, not have to feel bad when you find out during your first raid. That's no fun for anybody and just shows poor communication from your leadership. Anyways, this has gone on a little bit. I think it ended up being slightly rambly, but it was just a few thoughts on my mind about what I'm seeing from people and in game. Do you guys have any experience with this, or anything to add yourself perhaps, you can drop it down below. As always, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.